Which aspect of a foreign culture do you wish they had in your country?
Work-life balance. Working to death is not the answer in an Asian society that always wanna win or never lose face. My old company. Yearly hour-long mandatory culture seminar. Work-life balance is very important to us. Never be afraid to adjust things for a better balance. Call HR if you don't think you're being allowed to have a healthy balance. Talking to boss about the fact that I'm working, without overtime, 11-hour days and every other Saturday with no end in sight, and given that they moved which facility I worked at to one that's over 2 hours away in one direction, I'm barely having enough time to sleep, much less exist outside of work or even eat. Well, the work has to get done. I suppose if you stay even longer, then you'll get the work done faster and have more time. Ignoring that if I get more work done faster, they'll just assign me more work on the same schedule. Then talking to HR about it. You are a salaried employee, why are you whining about an extra hour here or there? Stop trying to nickel and dime the company.
Thankfully no, I quit and went to get my master's degree years ago. So funny story, company policy says that the company will pay for any technically oriented master's degree. You'll have to work for the company for a period of time after and some other rules, but as long as it's tech, it's good. My boss refused to sign off on me getting a robotics engineering master's to complement my undergrad. The only thing that person would authorize was phased array design, which is a trap because it forces you to stay in the defense industry. I complained to HR and was basically told she's too high-ranking to make follow policy.
This is a problem globally, really. European countries like Italy, for example, tend to have a good work-life balance. Probably because their households are multi-generational, thus you don't need to work 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. But outside of Europe, most countries have the mentality of work your ass off during the week and get Saturday and Sunday off.
I have a lot of Italian friends that have left looking for better opportunity. They say the word difficult is inadequate for how hard it is to make a living in Italy, if you're young. The same reason you say it's great, they say is the reason they felt they had to leave.
Can confirm, all my Italian relatives have had to leave and work in France, Germany and Austria to seek better work opportunities, and better pay.
Rubbish. I'm born in Ireland but I'm from Romania. They don't clean up rubbish in Romania. This is for the simple fact that there aren't empty trash bins to throw rubbish into. This is most evident in touristic areas like beaches, hiking areas and rivers. There's literally rivers filled with rubbish from tourists who don't have the decency to hold on to the rubbish. That's what I would want in Romania.
I definitely agree. I grew up in Romania and there is so much beautiful nature in Romania and I don't understand why people don't protect it better.
Some do and some don't. It depends on the education and ability to think outside of your personal needs and comfort. Sadly, in Romania, the people that are aware of the dangers that carelessness brings upon our beautiful nature are a minority. Romania is a beautiful country, too bad that it's inhabited.
Eastern Europe is not done with the smoking fad yet. Give it a couple of decades.
When I was in France, I was taken aback watching people argue about things and not getting upset with each other. As an Australian, that was one of the most refreshing things I'd ever seen. In my part of the world, people attach themselves personally to every little inconsequential opinion or viewpoint. If you challenge that viewpoint, people respond as if you're attacking them personally and it turns to shit like clockwork. It's such a deep-seated attitude, we ended up with the phrase "no politics" at the dinner table. Someone's inevitably gonna get upset and then everyone's having a shit night. French don't give a fuck. They'll debate politics, philosophy, religion, economics, all that shit until they're blue in the face. The mood never drops, you don't feel the energy in the room become more and more hostile. So that was
Whenever
nice.
I have a discussion in Australia with someone, people tell me to stop arguing. Even if both of us are being rational and aren't getting emotional.
All of this sounds like the southern United States. Every discussion is a boxing match waiting to happen the moment someone disagrees, and everyone will shut down polite discourse because they're all afraid that it will lead to a fistfight.
France's oldest hobby is deposing the government.
I am French and this is very true. In fact, I really enjoy discussing philosophy, politics, culture, food tastes, living habits and worldview with the people I meet, especially if they are from a different part of the world. It's so interesting. But I have noticed that sometimes people are having weird reactions to this, like I am too nosy sometimes. It actually never occurred to me that this could be perceived the way you are describing, and it makes a lot of sense now. I think this is very much part of French culture. We enjoy our discussions. Oftentimes, even if you agree with the other person, you might even play devil's advocate and place an argument in favor of the opposite position, just to keep the discussion going. Of course, that also leads to a kind of constant questioning and, to some extent, our culture of protest, and never really being satisfied with any situation, always complaining. I still prefer this to never discussing anything though. Edit. Thank you for La Silver.
I thought it was nosy too. I grew up in the US, but my boyfriend, French, explained that it is a way of showing you are interested in connecting with that person and that if you don't ask more personal questions it's almost rude. I think I prefer the French way. Small talk is basically banned in France. Either you dive in or go home. It really makes you loosen up a bit.
The buttons at tables in restaurants in Korea that request a server.
The Yogi-Yo button. Man, I miss it every time I go to the US.
I've heard that other countries are much more generous with vacation time for professional workers than the US is. Probably that.
This has been the biggest culture shock I've had moving to Poland. I never had a job in the US that gave vacation days. Poland, I think the minimum is 21 days. People seem way happier about work here in general. Also, cashiers get to sit down. I worked a few different retail jobs where if you even leaned against the belt you'd be scolded. Seeing cashiers sitting down was hugely shocking at first.
TF? Cashiers can't sit down in US? Is being cruel to your employees a national sport?
Wait, cashiers have to stand up as us? I don't think I have ever seen a standing cashier in Germany and neighboring countries. What is the logic behind a standing cashier?
I'm in the UK and have 25 days, plus 8 bank holidays, and I still feel like I have to really ration them out. Can't imagine having like 10 days. Think the EU in general mandates something like 20 plus days a year that you must take.
I got 2 weeks vacation time and used it all being ill. I worked New Year's, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and still had to take a few unpaid sick days after my vacation days ran out.
In Australia, we accrue both personal, sick, leave and annual, vacation, leave. For a full-time worker, minimum is 4 weeks annual leave, but a lot of my friends in mostly government jobs get 5 to 6 weeks, and 9 days sick leave. Both accrue if you don't use it in the year and you get paid out your annual leave if you leave your job.
Asian night markets. Not many places you can go in the US at night to just walk around, hang out, get some food, other than bars. Guess that's why malls used to be so popular. Edit. Yes, malls aren't open nearly as late. I guess I just meant lots of people used to go to malls, maybe they still do. Just to walk around, eat, and see and be seen, similar to why people go to night markets. A third space that is often lacking in the US in general. I have a problem similar to this. In my country, nighttime is as active as daytime, even more so since people aren't in work/school. Every cafe, shop, restaurant, patisserie, mall etc. are all open till midnight if not even later. Finding 24/7 open places aren't difficult either. So it's really active, and fun, and safe. Now I live in UK and everywhere closes so early and the place turns into a ghost town, with only pubs open. I hate how I can't just go to a cafe and spend my night there chatting with a friend. Or just simply walk down the streets that are busy and fun. Instead only choice is pubs or clubs and I have zero interest in any. I also hate the drinking culture here. Streets feels super unsafe since nowhere but pubs are open. I love UK in general, but I wish I could swap their drinking culture with our nightlife.
Japanese-style vending machines. I'm in the UK and they would just be vandalized.
My father worked for Rohm and Haas, plexiglass, and he was in Japan telling the advantages of plexiglass and how it would withstand vandalism of the vending machines. They just looked at him oddly and said, "What vandalism?" They couldn't conceive of it.
I think it helps that kids in Japan are given more personal responsibility of their lives as well as a sense of how their actions affect everyone as a whole with little things like cleaning their classroom.
Speaking of, the one standard Japanese thing I'd like to see in the US would be the way you interact with servers at restaurants. Rather than the onus being on the server to check up on you every few minutes, you can just call out to the server when you need them and they won't bother you outside of that. When you try to do the same thing in the US, it just feels rude, like you're specifically pointing out to your server that they're neglecting you or something.
Shout out to my Swedish friends. Fika is a social institution in Sweden where people take a break from work for coffee and socializing. It's about slowing down, catching up with friends, and really not being so focused on work. It's the mindset that comes with it about self-care and not overworking yourself that I find so refreshing. In North America, coffee breaks at work typically still revolve around work talk that you don't get a chance for a mental break.
I'm from the Netherlands, did a semester of uni in Sweden. Here, if you'd be running behind on a group project, you'd Skype with your teammates in the evening to get it done. When I suggested that in Sweden, they looked at me like I had 3 heads. Loved it.
Seriously? Lol, here in the US all of my group projects were done exclusively at night because that was the only time we could all meet.
Also studied in Sweden for a while. The attitude really seemed to be to treat it like a 9-to-5, 5-day-a-week job, and for the most part, the workload lined up with that expectation.
Most of my group projects we'd start work at around 9, then, sometimes, work until 4 in the morning. It was just too difficult to find times to meet otherwise.
Having a siesta midday and then everyone staying up way later and hanging out.
Agreed. I'm pissed I never made use of it.
Sounds like you need a nap.
I'm one of those people who seems to be physically incapable of napping. My last one was in February 2014, and I think there was only one in the 10 years before that.
As a person from Spain, you should know napping after lunch is very much not the norm. It's something that came from very hot and long summer days, especially in the mid and southern parts of the country where 40 degrees Celsius temps aren't uncommon. Nothing to do and the sun is out for longer than you are awake. Additionally, in Spain we have meals around 2 hours later than most other countries. Suggesting having dinner at 7 p.m. here would be really weird given that 9:30 p.m. is an early dinner for some, for context. So that hopefully explains the hanging out till later. Most people don't really have the time to take a nap midday, haha. Sorry for the long paragraph, just felt like I should clear that up. Edit. Some people have pointed out it seems like I think this is only a thing in Spain. I'm sorry if it came off that way. This is just in my experience. At uni I've had a lot of people assume that everything here works like what you run into in scorching summer heat during the holidays. And I just wanted to clarify that it is not as overwhelmingly prevalent here specifically. I'll also take this edit to note I was not expecting this much engagement, so thank you to everyone that's been responding over the past few hours. It's been nice having this discussion here, haha.
I spent a semester in Granada and the siesta as a cultural force seems to some degree present. A lot of the city shuts down loosely between 1 to 5 p.m. My host mom would always take a midday nap and I did a good amount of times as well, but I think usually most Spanish people are out and about doing other things during that afternoon slow down rather than sleeping.
As a person from rural southern Spain, I can confirm that we do siestas every day. Well, at least not me, but my parents do.
We Mexicans on the other hand still hold dearly that tradition, especially outside big cities.
We're in Mexico. I'm from Baja and I don't know anyone, except for old people, who does this.
Same. From Mexico City, if you want a nap you can take a nap on the bus/metro while commuting to school, work, home, but at your own risk of missing your stop or getting robbed while sleeping.
It seems a lot more normal in the States to go to therapy, which I wish was a thing here in the UK. Obviously there is therapy here, but from my perspective here it seems like society only thinks you should go to therapy if you have serious diagnosed issues, when in reality it can help everyone from time to time. Also bidets. Never tried one but it makes much more sense hygiene-wise. Like, if you had poop on your hand you wouldn't be content with just wiping it off, you'd, hopefully, properly wash your hands with soap and water.
I think it depends a bit on generation. But yeah, my friends and I openly talk about therapy and even the details of our sessions. It's nice to be open about it and sometimes run through our post-therapy thoughts. We're in our 20s for reference. I know people who are 40 to 50 plus who are much less open about it. I'm 39 and an American. The acceptance for going to therapy is relatively new.
Being friendly? My mum was a teacher in my country, then moved to England and was presented with all these rules about how you cannot make physical contact with children. It sounds weird, but let me explain. If I was sad, I could cry on my teacher's lap, and if I did something good, she'd give me a hug. She was like a second mother to me. I'm still in contact with her, almost 10 years later. When she injured her leg, we'd go to her house to do our projects. Same with my mother. Her teacher has been her best friend for 20 years, and she was there when I was born. I understand the reason for the no-contact policy. Some people do have bad intentions. But in my country, it is normal to visit your teachers at home, to go to their house to sing a birthday song, to invite them, or be invited by them. I see how it could go wrong, but I'm thankful for the teachers that I got close to, and still am. Also, my mother works with special needs children. Some of them really do need human touch, and we both feel like strict rules like this prevent the child from forming a connection.
I'm from UK and my mum is a teaching assistant with 3 to 7-year-olds. She would normally, if not for current times, regularly give kids a quick hug to comfort them if they are hurt or upset. I don't know if this is against the rules, but it's common.
I'm a dude working in childcare in the UK. It's not illegal in the slightest. I hug the kids I care for all the time, as does everyone else. It's actively encouraged to help them form bonds with their caregivers, feel safe, comfortable, etc. Yes, haha, pedo joke, heard it all and not all of it nicely.
Oh, hey. I am also a dude who worked with kids in the UK. Mostly as a theatre in education practitioner a few years ago. When I worked in schools, it was a condition of my company's liability insurance that I maintained a no-contact policy. I was specifically told never to initiate any physical contact, even if a child was upset, and that if they tried to hug, that I was to redirect into a high five or a fist bump. It was fine most of the time, but I was working with kids on issues surrounding migration, domestic violence and healthy relationships. Let me tell you, there is no worse feeling in the world than when an 8-year-old just told you his brother was murdered and all you can offer in the way of physical comfort is a high five.
My beloved Spanish teacher, US, caught me in the hall on a bad day. I was maybe 15 or 16. He said, "Oh, you look so down today, you look like you need a hug. Do you want one?" I nodded and he gave me the best dad-like hug. It meant a lot because my dad didn't live at home at the time. My teacher saw my mom in town a couple of days later and said, "I hope it's okay, but your daughter looked really down at school a couple of days ago and just looked like she needed a hug." Of course my mom was touched and grateful that a teacher was willing to provide emotional support for her child. Whatever was bugging me that day never made it home with me, and over 13 years later I still have no idea what made me upset that day. But I remember my teacher comforting me. He was a special man. He passed away about 5 or 6 years ago. I cried when I heard the news.
If you like our video, please like and subscribe.